To destroy an empire, you can't strike first. You must starve it. And before a government can fall, there must be something ready to replace it. Then you destabilize its economy. Once its people have nothing left, they'll tear it down themselves. But how did it come to this? From a criminal nobody, drifting through the desert, to actively plotting the downfall of the United Cities. It became quite clear Vagabond couldn't work alone anymore. There was way too much work to be done. So she traveled west to the swamp to recruit some squad members. First, we picked up a Hiver drifter named Silvershade. After that was the prospective anti-slaver reject known as Hammett, who I thought was perfect for this squad because he lost his beloved to the slavers. After that came Ludwig, who I liked because of his silly dialogue. Together, they traveled back to the training camp and endured much suffering together over the next several days. Ludwig even lost his right leg permanently. However, through the power of will and determination, and the motivation to bring down a common enemy, the team built something better than the Fight Club. A strong and sturdy base with a steady supply of food. And by day 57, Vagabond was ready to execute the next part of the operation, making allies with the rebel farmers and boss Simion. So she made the trip north towards Sinkun, but on the way there, she made a stop at the slave farm she had already crushed. When she destroyed this slave farm by imprisoning Mistress Ren, she had weakened the UC's food supply. The remaining slaves were unjustly trapped inside the locked gates, so she freed them and removed them of their shackles. That's when we got the next member of our squad, an ex-slave named Paraslow, who had a passion to survive and was now Vagabond's adopted sister. We dropped her off at home base so she could get fed and clothed and train up. Then, Vagabond set out again to find Fort Simion and make a deal. We arrived at Fort Simion in the wee hours of day 59, and it looked much less like a fort than I was picturing, and more like a hobo village. Upon meeting Boss Simion, he was surprised to see an anti-slaver at his door. They weren't there for him when he needed someone the most, and he has now turned into a murderous warlord with a starving army. But kind words went very far with him, and he liked the idea of the anti-slavers taking down the United Cities, so he agreed to ally with us. The next step in my plan to overthrow the government— please don't put me on a list, it's a video game for Christ's sake. The next step was to take down the South Stone camp in Heng controlled by slave master Reuben. This camp in particular fed the United Cities its building materials and ore. If the empire was going to collapse, this place had to go. On the way there, we made a quick stop by Stoat to see if the empire peasants were beginning to feel the effects of the loss of the slave farm, to which the answer was yes, they were getting hungrier. Starving peasants would become angry peasants, which now made the United Cities look pretty vulnerable. Then, Vagabond continued on her journey to the next slave camp. She was staking out the camp from behind some tall rocks, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. That's when we noticed the rebel farmers raiding the camp themselves. While the gate guard was distracted fighting a dog, Vagabond moved in from the side. She gave him the old bink, and down he went. She was then able to creep around the perimeter of the camp and hide out behind the noble house of slave master Reuben. But then, right as she was about to go for the target, our base was in trouble. Silvershade, Hammett, and Ludwig were dealing with the Band of Bones. I knew the fight would be rough for them without Vagabond, but they'd have to manage this time. Blood was certainly shed, but lucky for them, the Menders Guild came by to heal them up, and they'd be okay. Vagabond was waiting for everyone in the camp to retreat inside for the night. When the coast was clear, she darted for the door. Her stealth had become so high that these two dum-dums couldn't even see her walk in through the front door. I debated knocking them out, but decided it wasn't worth the risk of failure. That's when I made my move against Master Reuben. Successfully KO'd her, kidnapped her with ease as well, and was able to sneakily run right out the gate thanks to the coverage of the dust storm, and head right home. It was so easy. Too easy. The team was fighting off a beak thing back at the base, and then I noticed that Vagabond was under attack, still not yet home. The skeleton thralls were attacking her and her prisoner, and they were much faster and stronger than anything Vagabond could handle at the moment. She tried to get away, but they were merciless and left her and her captive unconscious in the middle of Venge. Reuben woke up just a second before Vagabond, and both were limping away to safety. Vagabond was going to get what she was after, though, and she followed close behind. After much hobbling, she was able to get her mark. Unfortunately, she didn't get far before she was hit by a dust bandit and knocked out once again. Reuben was making her escape while Vagabond tried to recover. I was so worried all my planning would have been for nothing. She was in such rough shape by the time she woke up, and Reuben had gotten so far, and now the dust bandits were coming back for her. She made it close enough to Reuben that the dust bandits attacked her as well, and again, the two of them had been knocked out. And yes, Ludwig was still fighting the beak thing during this entire escapade. When Vagabond finally came to, she picked up Reuben and Sneak and made her way for the training camp for the last time. At the same time, Ludwig took care of the beak thing and healed his fallen teammates. Weary from the trip home, Vagabond finally made it and put her prisoner in the cage. We took everything Reuben had and healed her injuries. She would never make another slave work again. Now, attacks on the camp wouldn't stop just because Vagabond was home. Far from it, actually. We were raided over and over by the Band of Bones, but with the help of some nomads, we were victorious. And the next couple days were about preservation and recovery. Perislow's hair came back, and her mohawk definitely screamed, "I'm rebelling against the establishment." Hammett manned the turret so that if attackers came in from the gate, he could get their health down pretty good before they reached the team. Ludwig had become as skilled a swordsman as he was a doctor. Silvershade was the farmer. And in the early hours of day 63, when the team had recovered pretty well, Vagabond left to execute the next step of the plan. The farms were failing, the peasants were hungry. Now it was time to really cripple the Empire. The Traders Guild had to go. We were going after Longan now. Vagabond staked out Trader's Edge until the cover of night fell. Then she started to move in. And of course at that same time, the camp was under attack once again. Hungry bandits. I had faith in the squad to handle this one. Vagabond's stealth skill made this practically feel like cheating. She was so sneaky she walked through the spotlight past 5 guards, into town, then straight into the Traders Guild headquarters. Longan was asleep on the 3rd floor, so I just went for it. She was stealthier than a Sasquatch at this point. It didn't matter who was in the room. If it was dark enough, she was hidden. She got our man practically effortlessly. Then she made her escape once again across the desert, where I prayed we would have an unexciting trip home. The squad had cleared the base of hungry bandits, and it seemed like everything would be clean and easy this time around. Until I was warned of a holy assault headed towards our camp. Great. Looking at the map, I could see that they were closer, but Vagabond was faster. She rushed to beat them there while the team fought off a beak thing. It was a race against time, and I could only hope Vagabond was winning. She did beat the Holy Nation back to her camp and quickly imprisoned Longan, taking everything he owned as well. She could lecture him about why slavery is wrong, but that would have to wait because we had to prepare for the incoming assault. Vagabond and Silvershade waited outside the camp, and Perislow locked the gate behind them. They arrived soon after and the fight was on. Silvershade was really a pawn used to keep some of the attention off Vagabond. The others stayed in the camp to stay safe for when Vagabond needed more help. I truly didn't expect Silvershade to fall so soon, and when he did, I tried to run the Holy Nation away from the camp. She ran them off a short distance when we encountered a team of hungry bandits. Talk about pawns. Silvershade woke up and was immediately under assault by a remaining Holy Chosen. Vagabond couldn't help him. Survival came first. After the hungry bandits had been wiped out, it was 1v14 as Vagabond tried desperately to keep them away from her squad. She was taking many hits, but healing as she put enough space between them. But one can only take so many hits to the chest before enough is enough. She collapsed in the middle of the desert, and the Holy Assault returned to wreak havoc on her camp. Despite Perislow's best efforts, the Holy Nation was able to break open the gate to the camp, and then they went for the walls. They beat the absolute shit out of her, and then went for the others. Hammett was successfully firing bolts on them, but not quickly enough. Vagabond slowly woke up from her nap and needed to get back inside the camp before the Holy Nation released our prisoners from their cages in the Stormhouse. But it was just too late. We couldn't stop them from breaching our locked doors. Now we just had to hope they wouldn't let out the prisoners. She ran back to save Silvershade from dying and was met with the assault. All hope seemed lost as our team just couldn't get back on their feet. How would they recover from this? After a short while, they finished their assault and they all hobbled away. But not without leaving devastating impacts on the squad. Vagabond quickly ran inside the Stormhouse to check, and to our horror, Longan was gone. I combed the surrounding vicinity to see if he was close nearby, but to no avail. There was only one option, and that was to run and find him. But with the dark closing in, it would be much trickier to locate our escaped prisoner. We ran all the way back to Heng and Trader's Edge, anxious that this man had reclaimed his throne and the initial kidnapping scheme had been for nothing. That was far from the reality, though. To my great satisfaction, both cities had fallen and were in ruins. The Empire peasants had finally snapped. Across Heng and Trader's Edge, they were openly fighting the samurai guards in the streets. A full-blown civil war was breaking out. I watched in amazement at the consequences of my actions unfolding and changing the world around me. In the end, things didn't go perfectly, but they still went according to plan. There were still dominoes to be put into place before they could all topple over, and I still had one more friend to make. But for now, I was very pleased with the dismantling of the Empire. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This series has become something way bigger than I ever expected. What started as a chaotic Kenshi gameplay somehow turned into a full passion project, and I genuinely appreciate everyone who's shared advice, laughed at the disasters, or supported these goofy videos in any way. As of today, there are 47 people subscribed to this channel. Maybe that's tiny to some people, but to me it's honestly incredible that 47 people care enough to watch something I made, so thank you. My dad was a published author, and I'm thinking this is my own weird way of carrying on that storytelling tradition. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye!